You're listening to Hooked on Startups, where every week you'll hear from some of the most talented, inspiring, and successful entrepreneurs who shared their real-life stories, how they overcame challenges and failures, and how they mastered success. Get ready for some of the best business tips, tricks and tactics, and some frank, unscripted discussions. Here's your host, Matthew Sullivan.
I'm just delighted to be joined today by Jay Levin. Jay, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Matthew.
And let me tell you a few lines about Jay. So Jay runs a highly regarded life elevation coaching and training practice. But you chose to move into this field having had a hugely successful career in journalism. You founded LA Weekly newspaper, which is a huge achievement. You were the editor-in-chief and CEO for many years. And during your tenure, the Weekly grew to be the largest and the most successful city weekly in the country, and had a huge, profound, and positive effect on the people in Los Angeles. Some of the reforms that you caused in smog, for example, really catalyzed cultural and social change in the community. Does that sound like a decent summary?
Very well put. People are going to think you're my PR man, but I tell the audience you're not. But that was great.
I've synthesized it from a number of different sources. It's not my own work, but but obviously the obvious question is, with this huge journalistic success and the fact that the LA Weekly is still, one of the most, highly respected magazines, you moved from that into a completely different career. You transitioned, you chose to move into the career that you're in now, which is coaching and training and teaching. And what drove you to do that? Can we just explore that? Yeah.
So let me correct that. I didn't move completely out of media. I just split my time between the new career and media. I mean, I've run a number of media companies and started a couple since the Weekly.
Yep.
But I have worked with hundreds and hundreds of people as a life coach and across the board on all kinds of issues, everything from suicidals to CEOs and marriage counseling, all that stuff. And I work from a comprehensive field theory that allows me to work in a number of different dimensions in that field. But what got me into it was the fact that when I was young, I came myself from a fairly loving but dysfunctional family. People. Yep. Aunts and uncles fighting all the time, a low level of consciousness, bickering, fighting. It was kind of an immersive thing, even in my own home. And the way I coped with that as a young person was I kind of pulled back from engagement, right? And self-protective engagement. So that gave me that reinforced my sense of looking at things and observing what's going on, even if I didn't have all the answers. But I always had a sense that there was something better happening, potential in the world. So even as a young journalist, I started focusing on social change issues, where the society wasn't in accord with its highest values, and racism was an important issue when I was younger, and violence, imperialism in the American violence across the board.
Yeah,
in those days we were overthrowing countries like crazy. The CIA was overthrowing the legitimate governments.
Yeah,
it happened when I was a child, but I was learning about it as an adult. We got the Iran mess because we overthrew a democratic government in Iran, etc., so on and so forth. So, but the other area that caught my attention was I had this understanding very early on that the world was an effect, not a cause, right? Somehow I understood that, and that the way people are trained to deal with each other and deal with themselves was crucial to making really positive change. So I became very interested in the human development movement early on, the post-Freudian human development movement.
Yeah.
So back then, a bunch of years ago, some of the big stars were coming up, like Tony Robbins, et cetera, that came at the later stage. But in the more profound psychological realm, there was Gestalt therapy and psychosynthesis, and a range of different kinds of techniques. And the first article I wrote for the newspaper I was working for as a 22-year-old person was about bringing modern therapy techniques into drug treatment. Yeah. Right. But that opened the door to me really exploring that field. And I went to a lot of workshops. I did a fair amount of writing about this emerging new post-Freudian paradigm in therapy and its effect. Later it developed, very early, this was reasonably early on, the self-help movement stuff. Yes. And when I started the weekly, we were the only paper of its kind that also covered this field. I had a columnist covering this field. We also covered alternative health early on, et cetera, of the urban weeklies. So it was something I was steeped in and knew a lot about, and saw as one of the change-making tools, if not the change-making tool. So the great takeaway I had in those days was that human dysfunctionality and conflict and pain and the shit we do with each other, the pain we cause each other, really wasn't. We know it as character defects and evil, etc. Yeah. But it really comes. Its real source. That's an effect. The real source is the lack of skills to deal with our emotional reactions in children from childhood on, that we develop in a hierarchical culture, which tends to force us out of, a natural, organic sense of our expressing our authentic, loving selves, our innate intuition and wisdom, and into behavior patterns that basically are coping mechanisms. So most of us relate to ourselves or the world from what I call 6 coping mechanisms. One of them is fight. Yeah. We fight, we rebel. Another one is flight, we avoid. You can be a fighter, flighter. You fight for something. You lose it, and then you're out of there. How many people have relationships like that all the time? Another one is, or you can be a flighter, fighter, which is you avoid, and it builds up in you, and one day you go out and shoot somebody. Yes. So that's because we're not trained to deal better with our emotions. The other 4 are just as powerful. One is seek approval. Yeah. We start trying to just seek everybody's approval rather than be ourselves, to a sliding scale degree. Another one is manipulate. We start telling little lies as kids. We grow up to be Wall Street ripoff artists. Yeah. And sometimes presidents of the United States. So that's we learn to manipulate. We feel a little fear. We put this one against that one. All office politics is based on manipulation. Yes. So it doesn't create a healthy relational field in the world.
And go ahead. Sorry.
Okay. And then there's control. Some of us become control freaks. Yep. Or in certain circumstances become control. And the last one is fix, where we try to take care of the other person and to the expense of ourselves. And it's part of seeking approval, but it's also a big theme of its own. And, you end up marrying an alcoholic and enabling them. Yep. Or you're a politician enabling another sicker politician.
I know, but and you're right. And I think the real problem is that these are fundamental cornerstones of our psyche, yet they receive little, if any, coverage, or they're hidden. They're the thing that we shall not speak its name, almost.
Yeah, we're not trained to speak our name. Part of the training is to be able to be self-aware of exactly what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why the 95% of you that is memory stick and can be reactive from the brain has taken over your behavior and your responses when you feel particularly stressed, right?
So there's two points I want to sort of focus in on this. The first is this concept of imposter syndrome. So talking about it in the context of someone who's setting up a business or trying to build the confidence and the courage to go out on their own.
Right.
So there's this imposter syndrome idea. And the other thing is this concept, the I'm okay, you're okay sort of idea, the parent-adult-child relationship. And just the point that I want to try and get across is how important it is to take this layer of training as part of your overall business strategy. So in other words, you're crazy if you think that you can run a business or build a successful enterprise and not pay any attention to understanding who you are as a person, what drives you.
Right. So excellent point, and it's why so many big companies now are prioritizing emotional intelligence in their hiring strategies, because the old reactive model, me against you, right?
Yeah.
You can destroy a company in a spot. You can screw up your own company because you're not on top of your own feelings. Somebody today just sent me a brilliant letter that Elon Musk wrote to his staff about team, about accidents happening.
I saw that. Yeah, amazing.
I saw the memo. Yeah. So the quality of that was he's saying, I'm responsible. I really got to care about you, and I really want to know and bring me to come to talk to me immediately. Myself, don't, and I want all our supervisors to take the same quality. So that's a high quality of emotional intelligence, right?
But actually, the amazing thing about that article, it was because a lot of managers say, they do they pay lip service. They'll say, if there's a problem, come straight to me. I want to know about it.
Right.
I think the really important thing about that note was that he said, this is Elon Musk, he said, and then what I will do after we've fixed it is I will come down and I will do your job just to make sure that it's fixed. So it's that willingness.
Yes. So yes. So every business owner, manager would behoove themselves and save themselves a lot of craziness and angst in life and make a lot more money if everyone committed to doing three things, which is mindfulness training for themselves, self-awareness training, right?
Yeah.
Emotional management awareness and training, and what's used to be called, and still best known as nonviolent communication training, right? Which is basically compassionate communications. So you're really getting in the mindset out of the reactive coping mechanism, defensive postures and manipulative control, etc. And you're in this field where you're creating a sense of empathy for other people, their positions, understanding, and you're communicating that really well. So people are really bonding with you and feeling safer. And guess what? People who bond with you and feel safer, express more loyalty, work harder. And if they're trained themselves and you spread that training to your staffs, right? What you get is people who love to come together and work together, who know how to be in good relationships with each other rather than in power struggles with each other. And you get a very different sensibility and a very different teamwork. So the smartest businesses are learning about this and employing the consultants they need to bring this about and the trainings they need to bring this about. Yeah.
Sure. But the real issue is that at what level do you believe that you are in need of this sort of training and advice? Because I bet you 95% of businesses out there say, this is great, but this is, babble, mumbo jumbo, some big company might want to spend tens of thousands of dollars on it. because they got too much money. It's not for me. I know what I'm doing. I'm doing a perfectly good job.
Right. on the way to a lot of problems. Yeah.
But how do you create this understanding for the mass market? Because this links into what you're doing with your EQ training. But the real challenge is getting people to understand what's actually staring them in the face. Right.
Well, I mean, we're like 30, 40 years into the self-help movement, so it's not impossible now. And the fact that the Harvard, Forbes magazine, all the business magazines, Harvard Business Review has been strongly behind, Business School and Business Review have been strongly behind this. There's a quiet movement in the business world to say, okay, we've got to adjust to this. So if you're a smaller business guy, right, it's not the most expensive thing in the world. You can read some books. You can go get some local SVN trainer to come in and work with you and the staff at a pretty very low level.
Yeah.
And the training is kind of basic. I mean, it's not the end of the world, but it's very effective. Once you learn how to language from a different kind of place inside yourself, when you learn to, just hold back a minute, don't try to control the conversation, just like any therapist would, try to, ask the other person, let the person know you're feeding back to them that you get them.
Yes.
You said something to you, you say, hey, this is what I heard you say, right? And that you're aware of their emotional body about it, and that learn to be very aware of your own emotional reactions. And if they're negative, right, then you don't have to go through years of therapy to train yourselves out of being negative emotions. It's a pretty quick course you can almost learn online from YouTube, right, on how to manage your own emotions in a more healthy way, give yourself a break from the most reactive sensibilities.
Yes.
So the advantages are immediate, because what happens is when you do this, the reactions, you're really dealing with brain structure here. The more primitive parts, the reactive parts of the brain, and the amygdala, the back of the smaller, back of the brain, the part. And when you learn to manage the reactive sensibilities, which link to the negative thoughts and fear-based outcomes in your brain, when you learn to manage that, what automatically happens is the frontal lobes take over, the later evolutionary lobes, which is higher, linked to your intuition, your broader picture understanding. Every CEO who's really great, right? A really great CEO works from has equal access to the 4 operational parts of the brain, right? One is the creative and the entrepreneurial. The other is the empathetic, the understanding for other people. The third is the managerial, how to organize. And the fourth is the detail part of the brain, the engineer, accounting part of the brain. That I can understand details. Yes. Most CEOs can't operate from all 4 parts of the brain, but they need to focus on delegating where they don't, like the detail management if they don't. And they need to do what they can to expand the empathetic part of their brain, which is plastic and can be learned.
Yeah.
And that's what emotional intelligence training is about, right? And there's plenty of not very expensive courses that people can find to get themselves more emotionally trained. Right?
But I think the real challenge, though, is to say, okay, so the human development movement has been running for 30 to 40 years. How do we now get this? How do you get scaling this? How do you get rid of all the charlatans, all the guys that produce those, 100-page ebooks that talk about, that are effectively, rephrasing Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich?
Right.
So how do you cut through the guys that are using this as a marketing mechanism to get more followers on Facebook, and actually really get across the fact that this is something that is a science, and this is where the evolution of mankind is going to come from.
Yes, it is the evolution of mankind. Well, the people who are really do quality work, they're pretty obvious because they get big followers. I mean, if you can afford Tony Robbins, he's going to make a difference. But usually, there's local people who have decent followings, and they'll post testimonials. You can do some homework, talk to people, see about their expenses. Ask around among friends. there's no shortage of ways to find out if somebody is just a hustler.
Yeah.
And I actually think there's a lot of good people in the field doing varieties of work. And if you have conversations with them and you feel in alignment with them and you feel it's trustworthy, fine. You can find in major cities, you can go to meetups where you can go to you can find support groups.
Yeah.
A good practitioner of social, for example, of nonviolent communication training or empathetic communication, will have organized his students, his or her students, into a support group.
Yeah.
So you can drop into that. If they have a support group, then you're working with other people as well. So you're just coming at, basically you're teaching yourself good new habits and culminating bad old habits and reactive habits.
Yes.
So it's not rocket science to get there. It's only rocket science to get yourself to get there.
That's the challenge. That's that first step. And
right.
So the campaign that you're rolling out throughout schools, which is the EQ campaign,
right?
Is that the sort of the next iteration? Is that the beginning, do you think, of is that the evolution of the movement?
Yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I've been aware of for years is, and reinforced by my own practices, is this effect, this absolute truth that the human species is screwed up, fucked up, if I can use that word, you can edit me out, because we lack skills. And we're really at a very urgent stage in human history where we have nukes pointed at our heads, and people who come from this reactive paradigm and lived much too closely to the amygdalas, right?
Yes.
Set up a system whereby, we could destroy each other in a moment, right? That requires massive change in the way we think and relate to each other as fast as possible, right? From my point of view, right? Separate from all the good stuff it does in business. So how do we do that? Well, you start with the younger generations. You get this training into every school you can as fast as you can. And since we're in America, we're starting in America.
Yeah.
So these programs that have been developed for adults, and we know them as Landmark, Mindspring, MITT, et cetera,
yeah.
They have their coefficients for children. And the coefficients for children are actually even better.
Yeah.
Because they've been evidence tested for many years, and they keep getting better and better. And there's hundreds of these programs and practices available.
Yeah.
And if you put them in schools, and only 10% of schools have really done it right, you put these in schools, you can take a child out of that reactive behavior, and very quickly, because their minds are not so transformed, create these incredible human beings out of them.
Yes.
Where they relate to each other like you wish every adult knew how to talk to each other, where they were constantly loving and in teamwork, and they're in the co-creating and playing together happily, and learning like crazy together.
So this is, and you talk in some of your articles and some of your videos about this concept of radical sanity.
Right.
Is that?
It's exactly what I mean. This is radical sanity. Right? Radical sanity means you're switching your operational system inside yourself from the amygdala part of your brain, and you're training the frontal lobes in a way of thinking and automatically relating to other people and to your own stuff as it comes up, your own emotional reactions, in an infinitely more healthy way. So you're creating different outcomes.
Okay, so, and let's talk about time frame. So we've got the children and the early stage where it's more of an osmotic effect over time. But then if you take someone that's again talking about business leaders, or just someone who's in a business environment who's been doing the same thing over and over, and is finding themselves banging their head against the wall, doing the same thing over and over, trying to get different results.
Right.
how quickly can your techniques make a difference?
Well, they're not my techniques, but it depends on what programs they go into, how immersive they are, etc.
Well, you've created.
Anybody can learn nonviolent communication in a few outings or with a trainer coming in.
Yes.
A couple of months and start practicing it until it's organic. So anybody can learn that.
But I think what you've done is with your life elevation technique, you've synthesized a number of these different types of approaches.
Right.
Because I think one of the challenges is, where do I start? I mean, you talk about nonviolent communication and empathy and words that don't have a $ attached, as far as I'm concerned.
Right.
And your direction is critical here to someone. I mean, would you recommend people start at a certain point so they can start discovering who they are, so that they can become more effective at what they do?
Right. So I would recommend that people explore in their communities, right, the opportunities in their specific communities for these programs. If they want to do an immersive program and really look at their own behavior patterns, they feel it's really not working for them, then they might want to sign up for something like Mindspring, Landmark, these other immersive training programs, right? If they just want, if they want to go on a lesser level than that, and don't feel they need that much, then there's people they can hire to come in and train them in aspects of the skills, mindfulness skills. They can join a smaller group.
Yeah.
They can separately, nonviolent communication has outposts and trainers in virtually every part of America. So they can explore that. Compassionate communication trainers, empathy communication trainers in their community. It's not hard. It's out there. You just look for it. Meetups, they can go to Meetup and meet people who are already engaged in support groups around this. They can look for the life coaches like myself and executive coaches who specialize in this areas and can help them identify the level of need they need, and if they don't meet themselves, or encourage them to take on certain trainings. So there's a world of awaiting, of assistance and growth awaiting.
But the results. What sort of results have you seen? Do you have any sort of
in business
case studies of people that have had that real light bulb moment within a few minutes of talking to you?
Oh, I mean, endlessly, and it's not hard. I mean, if I'm having a conversation with somebody, and I'm identifying in the first session, or even a free. Let's see if we are a good fit together session.
Yeah.
It's almost instantaneous. I mean, because I understand where they're coming from. I can show them the patterns and how they're thinking originally, how they're thinking now.
Yeah.
Help them identify their own coping mechanisms, see that really clearly, understand why it's not working for them. So you can get a very quick aha just from people identifying their coping mechanisms.
And the really interesting thing is that this is not based on you just going on to a few courses and reading a few books. This is based on, decades of experience as an investigative journalist.
Right.
Lifting stones, uncovering practices.
Right. So the step by step. People have emotional. So you train them in skills to deal with their emotional reactions, so they calm down, and literally, if they're on a brain scan, the when they're reactive, the back part of their brain is lit up, and this goes dark. And vice versa when they learn to come out of that. You can be trained to come out of that pretty quickly by managing the worst of your emotions. Those are techniques. The critical mind that gets you into like chattering mind, bum, 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 judging every moment, right? Including judging yourself, right? A lot of people I've dealt with have, I say on a scale of 1 to 10, how big is your inner critic? A lot of people are up in the 8 to 10 range if they need help.
And we mentioned before this concept of the imposter syndrome, which is, I think, something that really affects a lot of people that want to make that leap, want to follow their dreams. And they feel, how could I be the person to do that?
Yeah, well, that's the training in that is, let's look at all the red lights you're giving yourself, and let's look what a green light would take, and the step-by-step process to give yourself green lights. Because the thought form that creates red lights on you moving forward is your issue, right? How do you get into that issue? We don't have to do a lot of therapy around it. We just have to know you're there and it's incorrect.
Yes.
So and then there's techniques to identify what's your true calling in life. It's just processes and techniques, and we do that. And then we say, okay, so let's make a very clear plan of how you're going to move forward, right? And whether you may be already running a company, but you're not handling the company right because you're doing the wrong things in the company. You're not delegating what you should be, and you're not using your strengths, right? So what are your real strengths, right? How do you liberate yourself into your authentic self versus what you call your false self?
Yes.
Right? Psychologists, one of my core, people can go to the website and download the first training lecture I give, but I have a field theory lecture about how we get to be who we are.
Yes.
And in the child, step in the childhood process, we develop what psychologists call the idealized self, this false self, right?
Yeah.
It's an image of ourselves that we want the world to salute and live up to, right? It's not us, right? So we've got to get past that image because we take it into all our relationships and our businesses, right? And the reason so many relationships don't work is that people are coming at each other with their coping mechanism, their idealized selves rather than their authentic selves. And they need the training. That's what marriage counseling is about. Just the training and skills to get out of this and into their authentic relating selves, and out of the reactive coping mechanism, because relationships trigger the desire.
Yes.
Go back to early childhood when we were pre-childhood, actually, when the world just felt safe. We came into a world we think it was to be safe, and then we found out, holy shit, where did I end up? and on an emotional basis, we start reacting as a child to the discordance of the world.
I mean, but you must have had, these are such valuable base concepts. You must have had some people that literally broke down in tears, and when they realized the fact that you've removed the roadblocks to their...
Oh, yeah, that's pretty common. I mean, people will, when they get those epiphanies and they feel the courage coming on, some of the tears are sometimes the tears of remorse, like, why didn't I know this sooner? Yeah, that's very common. But also there's also just tears of relief.
Yes.
Or sometimes shouts of relief. Oh my God, I get it now.
And the other issue is that I think, do you find that people believe that they are truly unique and just are astonished when you start giving them some very simple steps to follow, that they realize that they're not unique, they're not, and that they do follow certain behavioral patterns?
Well, so unique is an interesting word. One, the dysfunctionality is not unique. We're all trained and we all develop coping mechanisms. And, at the worst parts of the coping mechanisms, we become Hitlers and we want to kill everybody else who's different from us, right?
Yeah.
At the higher end, with the Gandhis and the Christ and the Buddhas, etc., who let go of that whole paradigm and just say, and come with the same message, right?
Yeah.
You don't know your true self. You're completely outside your true self. Your judgmental mind, which is the toxic download of the species, which kids don't come in with, but we get very soon on. Your judgmental mind, judging others, etc., is keeping you in hell, right? That's basically the Christ message. And as long as you're in that hell, you can't understand and see who you are. You can't see the magical, the divinity inside yourself, the creativity, and et cetera, et cetera. So you get this ego formation that makes it's all about you, basically, and you're wondering whether you're one up or one down with everybody else.
Yeah.
When these programs are in the schools, I've been in schools where I never want to leave because these kids are so incredible. I just think if I ever retire, I want to become a volunteer as a teacher's aide.
Yes.
I can hang out in these mini paradises because they're out of it. They're not in that. They're in the other matrix. They're in the matrix of automatically just loving and being kind to each other, creating like fun. It's all fun. It's all like when learning and having the greatest discussions. I've seen 6-year, 7-year-olds deal with conflict the way you wish every adult would, and certainly the politicians don't know how to. So we are not. We can create a healthy state of mind and a healthy state of relating in which we're liberated into our higher awareness cells and higher performing cells. And the long trail studies of kids who have been lucky enough to go through these programs they become incredible. They perform incredibly in life.
So all of the bad traits, the fears, what you describe, I think, as obliteration fear.
Mm-hmm.
These are all learned traits, and they can be unlearned, which releases your capacity to.
They come from learned behavior patterns about how to relate, not know how to deal with your emotions. Right? So they overwhelm you, and they come from learn not how to deal with another person's sensibilities and emotions. So you're likely to step all over them and create false relating mechanisms, right?
And the reason that I'm asking
you're missing the core and the best part of your humanity.
Well, that's the bigger picture, but just zooming it down to an individual who feels that they have a calling to do something, whether it's in a business enterprise or a social enterprise.
Right.
I think what we're saying is that all of the things that are holding them back probably didn't exist when they were, when they were a kid, when they were 2 or 3 years old.
Well, they didn't exist. They didn't exist when they first came in, right? When they come out of the womb, they don't exist.
So people need to learn to get out of their own way, basically.
Right. But there is research that if there's been a lot of stress in the parent field, the development of the neural net can come out in the womb can come out damaged, and there's even some research that you can predict who's going to end up a drug addict because if you're coming into a world where you're not trained in dealing with your emotional deficiencies, right? Yeah. And you're actually trained badly by your parents and by your parents in society, you're punished or you're pampered or whatever.
Yeah.
For normal organic emotional reactions to not being in a harmonious, safe field, right?
Yeah.
A kid in the crib, five rooms away from his parents, will start, even if he can't hear the parents fighting, will wake up crying because the vibrational field is off.
Yeah.
We're very sensitive. You go to a beach, you feel one vibration. You go to a ghetto, you feel another vibration.
Yes.
You go to work, you feel another vibration. We're very sensitive vibrational fields. Kids are like nothing but sensitive. So these sensitive human beings with very high levels of intuition and comprehension just get pounded into these behavior patterns and behavior fields, and piece by piece by piece. People can go listen to my lecture if they want to.
Yeah.
JayLevin.com.
Yes.
But the larger point is, you asked me how I got into this. I wasn't spared any of this. I had plenty of drama and trauma in my life. And after I left the Weekly, started a TV network in the 90s. Mm-hmm. It didn't work out because they didn't roll out the promised digital space when they said they would. So hundreds of us had failed businesses. And I was in it for 4 years. Yeah. Got only a little channel space. Went through a burnout. Decided I needed a break. Part of the break for media. Part of the break was to take a master's degree program in spiritual psychology just to focus on myself.
Yes.
I found I had really great coaching skills, which surprised me. People would come ask to work with me outside the class where we were practicing techniques. I said yes. Within a year, I had 25 clients just from saying yes to everybody who sent their friends.
Yeah.
So that's how I got into it. Over time, I sort of banked it down so I could go back to both running media companies and do coaching. And I work 18-hour days so I can have 2 careers, and I like it. So and then I started coaching CEOs and business councils. But over these years, I've known these programs exist in the schools. And that they're great turnaround agents, and they can change the schools, and they can put out kids who are going to change the species. You can't solve the Einstein formula. You cannot solve a social problem, et cetera, or any problem from the mindset that created the problem. You have to come from a higher level of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
These kids are the ones who give us a chance to not nuke ourselves if we can get this happening on a mass level. But meanwhile, we're fixing the school system.
Yeah.
The American school system is behind in education practice. It's beset by bullying, violence, drugs, suicides, et cetera, et cetera. You put these in a school, and within a year, all that pretty much dissipates. It really goes down to like small numbers from dramatic numbers. And you get these kids who are learning like crazy. You have to change the educational processes. So it becomes very obvious that the other best technique in schools, which is project-driven learning, becomes another way of doing it. So you can save all the public schools. You don't have to spend fortune on private schools.
Yeah.
You can get these programs massively out there. So the core is, why aren't they, if they're so good and they're so evidence-tested, why aren't they massively out there?
Yeah.
Because they're only known within the education community and not even there, right? The small little businesses and university institutes that are child development specialists, educators who develop these programs, they have no business association, right? Yeah. They have no mass marketing. They have no way they've let the mass public know about these programs and how effective they are. They're doing no before and after advertising, right? Yeah. So they go in and compete with each other with their little budgets to different schools and school districts and say, well, use my program instead of it. And they're all kind of variations on a theme, right? But they're excellent. A lot of them are really excellent, and they've been evidence tested and proven.
Yes.
Great statics and research on it. So what we're doing is the Big EQ campaign. We have what we call our EQ, Equip, with the EQ writ large, and Equip our Kids project.
Yep.
Right? We're going in on a nonprofit basis, started by myself and 3 other business leaders in LA. And we're going in and we're going to do that mass advertising and marketing and mobilization campaign.
Because I was going to ask you, we've established that this is such a critical component of humanity, and it sounds trite, but it really is.
It's fundamental to the continuation of human history.
Well, it is the ability to grow emotionally rather than just do the same thing over and over, expecting a different outcome.
Absolutely.
So how are you going to get momentum and take up in what is a truly important campaign?
Well, that brings us back to the business community. We want to do tens of millions of dollars in advertising. So to raise that's a challenge. Maybe it's not impossible, and we can possibly do it. But what we're offering the business community is allyship, right? Yep. We're saying to the business community, this benefits the society. It benefits you greatly. Everybody's got workforce issues. You're going to get great workforces. So that's your long term. Everybody's got social branding issues and wants to stand out. This is Godmother and apple pie writ large. So let's social brand this together. So we're starting to go out to businesses and say, you don't have to give us any money. It'd be nice if you made some donations to our operations or give us money for advertising if you want. Yeah. But take a piece of your current budget and either run our spots or run our messages in your spots. So it's an inclusive message that says, we support social emotional learning in all schools for these reasons. Go to thebigeq.org, right? Yep. So we want to make it easy for businesses to be the backbone behind this campaign, right? Because they've got the money, they've got the resources, and it's
business.
They have the needs.
It's business. So it's not. So this is not going to be. It cannot be a government-driven initiative.
No, it's not at all.
It has to be business-driven. No. Otherwise,
we need the people. When parents know about this, they're going to go demand it. When the public and businesses start demanding it, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
But it's not happening because educators who know about this don't have any wins at their back. There's no wind in their sails, right? Legislators barely know about this, and there's no wind in their sails. So there's a quiet movement going on within the education community to make this happen. The missing ingredient is the public and public awareness and public enthusiasm. So we're going to generate that with an advertising and media campaign. And secondly, we're working on the grassroots level in the community, and on a model that's developed in Massachusetts by a guy named Mitch Lyons, a retired business guy.
Yes.
Who organized the stakeholders to go out and create this volunteer alliance to work on a grassroots level so that he didn't have to do it all. And he just got the enthusiasts. And they've had a huge effect in Massachusetts. They even got the legislators to give them the state capital for one of their conferences.
Fantastic.
So he's helping us model that in California, LA County, and then we want to spread it around the country together. So the combination of grassroots organizing and mass media campaign is going to do the trick. And it's just, a step-by-step process. Take us a few years, but we're going to get there. So right now we're focused on testing our messages in LA County and testing, which is a microcosm of the country. 10 million people with every psychographic and demographic that the country has.
Yes.
So we can test different messages and things as we go forward.
So how can we help? How can people watching this and listening to this, how can they get involved with this, which I think is an incredibly important campaign?
So write down or memorize 5 simple letters. BIG, the word big. EQ, which stands for emotional quotient, right? .org is after the 5. We're a .org, meaning we're a nonprofit. We're not a .com.
And to make it easy for people, I will write this down.
We own .net too. Maybe you'll get there, but it's very easy. BigEQ.org. So just go there and learn about it and contact us. You can go. Big EQ. I'm Jay at bigeqcampaign.org. You can contact us that way. You can call me. I'm 310-628-7761. 310-628-7761. But at the website, you're going to find a lot of guides. You'll find information about, endless information about EQ and the responses. You can satisfy yourself that we're not crazy. But there's also guides there, guides to how to get involved, which is the core, the essence of what we want people to do, get involved.
And I think now
there's a donate button, so you can kick in some bucks so we can expand faster.
But I think, and it is so important for people just to really take that moment to read about what you're doing because of the value that it brings them. And it's time that we stop kicking the can down the road, I think, on this sort of
thing. Absolutely. So you can also Google social emotional learning for adults and find yourself programs, even at-home programs. And if you have kids, you got to do this. You can't wait to do this. You got to get on your schools. You got to look at. We list some parenting programs. There's one just coming out of Switzerland, Finland. We haven't put up yet. On the site, but we will shortly. Stuff to do at home. There's things you can do at home if you have kids already. Start getting yourself trained differently at home with your kids, and start training your kids differently.
Well, I think you
definitely go out to the schools and nail that.
Well, I think you've just
and the legislators. You got to let the legislators know. You got to send emails to your legislator. I want social emotional learning in all schools.
But I think, you've opened up a whole new world of things that we need to do, and I think the moment is now. And this is not, this is science. It's relevant. It's important, and and I think it's just astonishing the fact that you've been able to see all this and put it together and create a movement that is going to make such a difference to so many people's lives.
Oh, that's great. I appreciate you're characterizing it that way. Yeah.
But that's brilliant. But Jay, I can't thank you enough. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on. I'll put all of your contact details on the website.
Oh, that's great.
And thank you once again for being on Hooked on Startups.
Right, correctly. Maybe you'll edit this out if you want to, but I want to leave everybody with a scary thought. Right? I don't like to motivate from fear, but this is really important. Right? The nuclear age is 74 years old. 73 or 74 years old. That's a pimple in human history.
Yeah.
in that period, we've had 4 near-nuclear wars start by machinery misreading machinery.
Yeah.
Computers misreading computers and evidence coming in. And only in one case, last minute, the Russian guy decided it was fake. And we've had 2 near deliberate nuclear wars, Bay of Pigs, we got close, and there's an India, Pakistan in the early years. This is nuts, and we live under this cloud and umbrella, and we're not going to solve this problem from the way of thinking that we're doing. All we're talking about now is more nukes and more nukes, right? Yeah. We're living in the era of the human species having the potential to decline fast and the potential to evolve fast. These programs are about evolving fast, right?
Yeah.
So one of the good reasons to evolve, aside from the fact your life and every kid's life will get better and your business life will get better, is the bigger collection of whether we're all going to be around to enjoy it. So that's my final message.
Well, thank you. And it's, I think we're in the age of stupidity, and hopefully, soon we'll evolve out of that.
Well, we're the age of choosing between stupidity and evolution. Higher consciousness.
Well, I think history will put you down. Your name will be chiseled out of the marble as one of the main change makers. So,
well, I don't care about that. If the change happens, I don't care if nobody ever knows my name. I don't care.
Thank you once again.
Thanks a lot.
It's been a joy. Thank you.
Thank you. You've been great, Matthew. Thank you. Great questions.